Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk today. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson here at Kansas State University, and I'm really glad that you joined us. We're going to talk about Cow Colic, and Dr. Matt Miesner is our guest. He's always a great guest, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about things that make the abdomen of your cow sore and how they respond. Stay tuned.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Glad to be back.
Folks, Dr. Matt Miesner, he's the head of our livestock veterinary services here at Kansas State University. He's boarded in internal medicine, and today we're going to talk about cow colic.
Sound like a good topic.
And so let's just start out. What exactly is colic?
So I think in the most general, basic term, colic just means abdominal pain, and so most of the time we refer to intestinal pain when we talk about it, but the basic definition of colic is abdominal pain.
So we hear, you got a colicking baby, or you got a horse that's colicking, cow's colic.
Right. Yeah, and what's interesting about that is, we with the anatomy and the physiology and the production system, all of those reasons for that colic are going to be different, and we have to sort through that. And I think you're right. I think most people, certainly most of this audience probably is thinking, if you think colic, you think of your horse, and it's a pretty common thing that we deal with in horses as well, but a whole different set of reasons for that colic happen with cattle.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those different reasons, and then when we go through, we'll go through different clinical signs as we get into the rest of the segments of the show. But what are some of the general terms or general causes of colic in cattle?
Well, and so first off, I think some of those would be shared, and with some of the shared anatomy of the small intestine, a lot of the small intestinal reasons for colic in cattle would be the same as a horse, and we'll have situations where the intestines sort of telescope on themselves, or we'll have fat in the abdomen that actually twists around the intestine. Then we get into all the other reasons for ruminants that would colic, which would be, bloat, and then we've got, the abomasum stomach that twists around in a certain situation. And these happen with calves and dairies and others that we'll run into. But the whole different set of anatomical structures that we deal with in cattle will cause abdominal pain and colic and GI things.
So it makes some sense, too, that different cattle at different ages probably are more susceptible to different types of colic, like a baby calf that's on a bottle versus a cow that's out on grass versus a steer that's on grain.
Sure. Yep. Diet sets up different reasons for colic. In calves, getting scours and diarrhea alters the motility of the intestine, leading to other reasons for colic. Different infectious organisms can allow gas to accumulate, and that's going to take some reason to have some abdominal pain as well.
Great. Well, we're at a point in time here. We're going to take a break. When we come back, let's discuss a little bit more about some of the clinical signs, some of the things that farmers and ranchers should be looking for, things that you're wanting to understand if your cow's having abdominal pain or colic, and come back with that. Sounds good?
Great. Yep.
Great. Folks, thanks for watching DocTalk. We're glad to have you here this morning. I'm here with Dr. Matt Miesner. More on colic after these messages.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
This segment is brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Matt Miesner. We're at the College of Veterinary Medicine at Kansas State University. Glad to have you with us this morning. And Dr. Miesner is the head of our livestock services. It's both an ambulatory and referral. You were just talking about sending animals back home to lands far away that cattle are hauled in here for surgeries and different procedures and service for referral, and we're awfully proud of the service that Dr. Miesner and his colleagues provide. We're talking about abdominal pain, and let's go through some of the clinical signs, because they might be subtle, they might not be so subtle, but we need to understand what's going on with the cow.
Right, and they can be, and subtlety is probably their most common presentation for these types of things. And as a prey species, they tend to guard themselves, right? They don't want to let anything know that they're weak.
Yep.
And so one of the more common things, if we see it, might just be a pretty significant drop in feed consumption or milk production in the dairy side, or a calf that just kind of shuts down. So isolation, but so it can be quite subtle and vague, and that becomes part of the puzzle that we try to work through to get to the answer of what's happening. But we do see that. Then you'll have the whole severe clinical signs, which are what most people might notice as active colic, or the type of colic which is kicking at the abdomen, possibly rolling around. Oftentimes those more extreme clinical signs have hit a problem that is just they can't hide from, and so we have ideas for what's causing those types of active colic as well. But I tell you, show steers and others, probably it may just be as subtle as I'm not eating today, and occasionally kind of looks like he's scratching at his abdomen, but kicking at it, laying down a little bit more. But they can guard some pretty bad stuff.
So whenever you see animals go off feed, or you see them starting to isolate, folks, you need to start watching that animal more closely and look for different types of clinical signs, because then they'll start to tell you what's going on.
Yeah, and probably one of the best descriptions I've heard about ruminants is that they're recreational urinators and defecators. So they should be urinating and defecating constantly. And I will tell you that that shuts down, and that becomes something important that we look at.
And then the other one is that if we do have those twisted guts or things of that, we can have some straining too, right?
Yes, straining, flagging.
Obviously, a recreational defecator would have some straining going on if things weren't being passed.
Right. And then oftentimes you look at them and they're humped up. So we'll get this arched back. Some other things that can occur. But yeah, that's the thing. And then we get kidded a lot about, when we ask questions to a client, it says, well, are they defecating? And oftentimes look at me like, I got 30 in the pen, and I'm like, well, so usually that leads to a physical exam and looking at a rectal palpation.
What about differences in feces, like if they're stacking versus,
Sure.
And stacking means real dry, folks.
Yeah, diarrhea. Yeah, so it was a diarrhea. Now it's nothing. Was it mucus covered? Is it dry? Does it fit with what they're eating? That really makes a difference too.
Just a list of some of the things you have to have on the tip of your mind when you call your vet and start to get that referral and have the veterinarian come out. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Dr. Miesner about different types of things that cause colic in your cow.
There's
a lot of different ways of doing this woodwork, but I could not make a knife without both hands, especially without this thumb. And my thumb was so sore that I couldn't even touch it, and they wanted to fuse it, and I said no, cut it off, because I didn't want it sticking up. And I found out about the Kansas regenerative stem cell and went to Manhattan and had that taken care of in my thumb, and now I'm able to go again.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
The BQA Tip of the Day, sponsored by Beringer Engelheim Vetmedica Inc.
Howdy, I'm Kurt Pate with your BQA Tip of the Day. Livestock handling or low stress handling or efficient or effective stockmanship is a big thing going on these days, and I think it's just wonderful. But the thing we need to remember is, no matter what your style of handling livestock, if we keep beef quality assurance in mind and the actual temperament, the internal feelings of the animal, whatever we do, however you do it, if the animal goes into the chute, on the truck, on the scale, calm and peaceful and not cause too many problems, I think we're doing the right thing. The method, use what works for you. The outcome is what is so important.
Support Kansas agriculture education with an AgriTag. AgriTags are available anytime at your county treasurer. They look great on cars and trucks. For more information, go online to ksagclassroom.org.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information. This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Matt Miesner, who is the head of our Livestock Services, Ambulatory, and Referral Clinic here at Kansas State University in the Veterinary Health Center. And we're talking about cow colic, and we're going to start out with calves.
Sure.
Okay, so let's get the baby calf and some of the reasons that we'll have colic in those little guys.
And we mentioned initially, you talked a little bit about diet, and we would potentially set these animals up for some gas distension, fluid accumulation, whatever feed, and then we can lead to bacterial overgrowth. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot in calves is what we call a clostridial abomascitis, or a bacterial overgrowth where their abomasum, where their primary stomach fills with gas, gets distended, bloat, calf quits passing manure, those kind of things, and they get really sick, really toxic, really fast. And one of the things we'll notice on these calves is, they quit eating. Oftentimes, if it's a calf on pasture, this can happen with bottle feeding, but a calf on pasture, oftentimes it's a cow that is a heavy milker, so she's off eating, calf's having a good day in the sun, comes back and just tanks on a lot of milk. We worry about that. When calf's down, usually bloated, and when we listen to their stomach, oftentimes it sounds like there's a basketball in there. We get this resonating ping that happens, but really sick, really fast, and so that's something we talk about, or a fairly common reason to have a calf that's down and sick.
And we've seen some of those this summer. Coming out off of, biggest calf, most aggressive calf, probably because mom milks the most. And all of a sudden he got a roughed up looking haircut, dull look to him, and bloated. Yeah, and down and out, and then maybe we see situations where those similar type feeding and environmental setup leads to diarrhea. So we'll have calf scours we've talked about in the past, and that leads to different motility disorders, and
That intestine can potentially telescope on itself, so we can have abomasum, and then we move downstream with the other things. That intussusceptions would be common and possible in these calves.
So when you see an intussusception, or you have a calf with an intussusception, what are the clinical signs of that going to be?
Again, you'll still see some abdominal distension. Manure is nil, so it'll just shut down. When we listen to that, we may not hear that ping, but oftentimes you can listen and it sounds like this calf is just sloshing around in his abdomen, and so it sounds like he's just got a belly full of fluid, and a lot of times it's the backup from the intestine. But most things, we just see that manure really shuts down.
Straining?
Straining, yep.
So if you have a calf that's straining, not passing any feces, probably need to get it to the veterinarian pretty quick.
Yep, absolutely.
Treatment for intussusception, I know you've treated a few of those.
This turns into surgical. There's really no way to get to that other than to open them up, find it, remove it, or be able to reduce it, and that's a surgical reason for colic.
Okay. Anything else? We're going to have to go to a break, but anything else on abdomasitis or intussusception?
Well, I think trying to differentiate them. There's you might think you have something like that, but there's a few congenital things that we'll see in calves that look similar, where the portions of the intestines never really were hooked up. And those are calves you might see in the first 3 to 5 days. And oftentimes those things that never hooked up, there's no manure, but there's never been any manure. And so I can usually tell something like that by just doing a little digital, and if it's clear, then that calf has never passed any manure. And so there are a few little congenital things that can happen too. So cool. That's
Folks, if you see something like this, time to call the vet. We're going to come back with our final session here with Dr. Miesner on Cow Colic after these messages.
When your living depends on agriculture, you can depend on KFRM 550 AM. If you're in the southwest three-fourths of Kansas or the northern half of Oklahoma, catch us at 550 AM on the radio dial. But if that isn't you, listen on your cell phone at TuneIn Radio or on your computer at KFRM.com. We promise to keep you informed, entertained, and company as you go through your day. KFRM 550 AM, the voice of the plains. We would like to join your management team.
When looking at the number of farm and ranch operations, the USDA Census of Agriculture says cattle and beef production is the largest single segment of American agriculture. The census also says the average age of the American cattle farmer or rancher is in the late 50s. In order to support the continuous supply of U.S. beef, these producers need to do some business planning to successfully transfer their cattle operations to younger, independent producers.
I'm Joe Mushrush with Mushrush Red Angus, and my ancestors have been in this part of the world. Well, they walked in after the Civil War from Virginia. My dad was the start of Mushrush Red Angus. When we come back from college, we had about 100 cows, was working mainly part-time. My wife Connie and I, once we took over, tried to expand rapidly, making it into a full-time operation. We have told our kids that any of them that wish to return to the ranch, why we would do our level best to make a spot for them. And so far, our oldest son Daniel is now back full-time with us, and some of the others have expressed a desire to return, and so we have dedicated most of what we do into creating a spot and making a viable entity for anybody that wants to come back.
In an effort to get more of our family back on the business, we've started our own meat company. And so when we can take, say, a flat iron or a petite tender, and our local packing house has the knowledge and the ability to turn that into a higher retail cut, we'll sell those retail cuts quicker, and we'll sell them for 3 to 4 times the price of what we would sell them without some of those cuts being available to us.
The beef checkoff allows us to do something that we can't do on our own. We do not have the time or resources or the knowledge to go out and approach consumers on our own. By pooling our resources with other producers, it allows us to reach those consumers that we otherwise would not have any way to reach. And by combining our resources and our voice, why, hopefully we can make a difference.
And I hope one day that my children will be here on the ranch. So we need to be able to be responsive to the demands of future generations that we may not even be aware of, and the checkoff helps our industry do that.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels,
and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Broadband has become as important to us as highways. That is why DocTalk is teaming up with NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association, and rural broadband companies like Blue Valley Telecommunications in fighting for quality broadband access through the program Smart Rural Communities.
I don't think we have any idea what's coming in the future. I couldn't have imagined 5 years ago what we're doing today. So in 2 years, I would guess there's things we can't imagine that we're going to be doing.
To learn more, visit ntca.org/smart or bluevalley.net.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Matt Miesner. He's boarded in internal medicine and does a lot of medicine and surgery here at Kansas State University in our livestock services, where he is the section head in the Veterinary Health Center and in the College of Veterinary Medicine. And thanks for being with us. Always enjoy having you on the show. Let's talk a little bit more. We've got through some of the calf deals, but we got a couple other syndromes that can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think as they get a little bit older, again, feeds change, diets change, and reasons for these kind of things to set up will change a little bit. And I think that, on one side, we do see a fair bit of abdominal pain, GI pain related to just stomach ulcers, so they'll get abomasal ulcers just like, anything can. And those kind of have a whole different sort of vague syndrome, but we can see we talked about manure appearance, and this kind of gets a little bit dark and bloody, and there's all different stages of stomach ulcers in cattle, but that's one thing that we can think of. So, animals on high concentrate diets, get a little bit of ruminitis, abomasitis.
The other thing is the coccidiosis is a bright cherry red blood. Yep. And when you have these abomasal ulcers, it's going to be like coffee grounds dark.
Right. Dark and sort of a digested dark blood, that comes through, versus coccidia, which can be another reason for colic. It tears up the gut. But again, we can look at a fecal on some of those and figure those out. So the older the animal, coccidia is not something I'd think of in a calf in the first couple of weeks of life. That generally tends to come in later.
Yep. And then that high grain diet can also lead to some bloats.
Yeah. So bloat and colic, and I tell you, oftentimes you have bloat, and I get that description a lot, and we try to figure out, is it rumen bloat? Is it intestinal bloat? Is it big cecum that's kind of turned around in there? So bloat, as just kind of a general description, oftentimes has some colic signs associated with it, but then we're trying to determine what it is. And so maybe it's just a rumen bloat that we can take care of. Or is this bloat due to something that's obstructed the intestines? And oftentimes you can sort of tell that just by looking at the contour of the animal. So you might see, a lot of people have seen some rumen bloats where it's got some gas in that left flank kind of area, versus these big round bellies that potentially could be bloated, but all of their small intestine are just full of gas.
Yeah, and then you got free gas and frothy bloat, and wheat pasture cattle with the frothy, and the feedlot cattle and the show steers, we see more free gas.
Right, and a lot of times people are trying to determine these before they even see the vet, and if you pass a tube and that bloat doesn't come off really quickly for a free gas, or you don't have a lot of foam on your tube, consider something further downstream. And that's what I tell folks a lot. Well, it's bloated, we gave it some oil, maybe we gave it some TheraBloat, but it didn't go down. And so, hey, let's check and make sure something on the back end of it.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the show today.
Glad to be here.
Folks, Dr. Matt Miesner. Thanks for watching DocTalk. We appreciate you spending time with us. Remember, always work with your local veterinarian, and if you want to know more about DocTalk, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.